It's funny how we talk about countries becoming superpowers. Like, it's this simple recipe, right? Like, just add size, wealth, and boom,
Yeah.
superpower.
Right.
But in our research for this deep dive, we found something way more interesting.
Yeah,
This idea that technology might be the real secret sauce.
absolutely. It's not just about having technology, it's about how effectively a country uses it, especially certain types of technology. That's where this whole concept of general purpose technologies, GPTs, comes into play.
Okay, so GPTs.
Yeah.
These aren't your average inventions, are they? From what I've been reading in Jeffrey Ding's book, Technology and the Rise of Great Powers, you sent over some excerpts. It seems like this could really change how we understand history.
It really can. See, most inventions, they're useful for a specific thing, but GPTs, they're like finding a cheat code in the game of civilization.
Okay.
They change everything. They don't just change one industry, but how everything works.
So to use one of your analogies
Mhm.
from earlier, it's like discovering fire instead of just, inventing a better oven.
Yeah. Exactly. Think about the invention of electricity. It wasn't just about light bulbs, right? It revolutionized factories, communication, practically every aspect of life. That's what makes GPTs different, that widespread impact. Ding argues that's the real key.
But here's what I find really interesting, and this is what really got me thinking. Ding says there's often a lag between when a GPT is invented and when we see its full effects. It's not instant world domination. Why is that?
Well, think of it like this. It's like having a Tesla
Right.
in a horse and buggy world.
Mm-hmm.
The tech might be there, but you need the infrastructure, the skills, even the right mindset to truly harness it. And that takes time.
It's not just about the eureka moment, it's about what happens afterward.
Yeah.
And this is where Ding's work gets really interesting. He starts digging into specific historical moments to see if this GPT theory, if it holds water.
Yeah.
And he doesn't pick easy examples. He goes straight for the big one, the first industrial revolution.
Right.
And of course, everyone thinks Britain textiles, boom, superpower status.
Mm-hmm.
But Ding suggests it's a bit more nuanced than that.
Yeah, it's not quite as simple as that.
Now hold on, wasn't Britain's textile industry, wasn't that like the poster child for the Industrial Revolution?
Right.
How does that not fit the GPT model?
So Ding classifies textiles as a leading sector, a hot industry for sure, but not the underlying force driving everything else.
Okay.
He points to the spread of mechanization itself, fueled by advancements in iron production, as the real GPT at play.
So it's not just about making a lot of cloth, it's about changing how you make everything.
Yes.
That subtle difference feels really important.
Exactly. And Ding backs this up by looking at how Britain was training engineers at the time.
Okay.
It was all about practical skills, hands-on experience. They even had these things called mechanics institutes popping up everywhere to spread that knowledge.
It's almost like they were trying to create a whole generation of GPT people, for lack of a better term, who could apply those skills across industries.
Precisely. And that's where Ding argues they differed for other countries. It wasn't just about inventing cool machines, it was about making sure everyone knew how to build, use, and adapt them.
Okay, so we've got Britain, we've got iron and mechanization. But history doesn't stop there. What happens in round two, the second industrial revolution? Does Ding's theory still hold up?
Yeah, the second industrial revolution. That's where things get really interesting. This time it's less about a single country, being the dominant force, and more about who really grasped the core GPT of the era.
Okay, now you've got me on the edge of my seat. Lay it on me. Who was the unexpected GPT champion of the second industrial revolution?
Well, everyone always talks about Germany, right?
Yeah.
Germany, they were making huge strides with chemicals and electricity,
Yeah, sure.
which are definitely what we'd call leading sectors today.
Right.
But Ding argues that the US took the crown, and they did it by mastering something a lot more fundamental: interchangeable parts, and the widespread adoption of what he calls the American system of manufacturing.
Interchangeable parts. That doesn't sound as groundbreaking as, harnessing electricity. How does that become a GPT?
It's deceptive.
Yeah.
But think about it. Interchangeable parts, they weren't just about making things faster, right? They transformed how industries worked together, how supply chains flowed, even how innovation happened.
So instead of needing a blacksmith to handcraft every single part, you could mass produce standardized components and just assemble things way more efficiently.
Exactly. It's like the difference between, I don't know, building a car from scratch and putting together a Lego set.
Right.
And the U.S. took this concept and ran with it. They applied it to everything, way beyond just manufacturing.
So how does this connect back to Ding's theory about GPTs needing the right environment to really flourish?
Well, the U.S. understood that to truly leverage this GPT, they needed a workforce that could think in terms of systems and standardization.
Okay.
They invested heavily in practical engineering education. I mean, we're talking churning out graduates at an astonishing rate compared to Britain or Germany.
Wow.
And these weren't just engineers, right? These graduates, they were the architects of a whole new industrial paradigm.
You're saying it was their approach to education, their focus on building that GPT skill set that really gave the U.S. the edge.
Exactly. But, and here's where Ding's historical deep dive gets really interesting. He doesn't just look at successes.
Right.
He also examines cases where a country, it seemed like they were poised for dominance.
Right.
But then they stumbled. And the one he points to is Japan in the 1980s.
Japan in the 80s, everyone thought they were on the fast track to becoming the economic superpower.
Right.
I mean, they were killing it with consumer electronics, cars, all those things that seemed like the future back then. What happened? Did they miss the GPT buzz?
You could say that. They missed the boat. So while Japan, they excelled at hardware.
Right.
They missed out on the real GPT of the time, widespread computerization and software.
Oh.
And the U.S., meanwhile, they were busy laying the foundation for Silicon Valley and a whole ecosystem around software engineering.
That's fascinating. It's so easy to get caught up in those tangible, exciting industries, those leading sectors like you were saying earlier. But the real game changer can be happening somewhere, well, a lot less obvious.
Yeah, it really is a cautionary tale. Ding's research, he found a strong correlation between a country's software engineering capacity and its rate of computer adoption. The U.S. wasn't just building computers, they were creating the tools and the talent to make them actually useful.
Okay, so we've gone from steam engines to software, but I know you're not here to just talk history. I mean, this all feels incredibly relevant today, especially with everything going on with artificial intelligence. Is AI the next GPT we should be watching?
It very well could be. And Ding actually, he argues it might be the defining GPT of our time.
Okay.
But, and this is crucial, he cautions against simply focusing on who gets to artificial general intelligence first, like who gets to AGI first.
Right.
He says that's not the point. That if his theory holds true, the real race is about something much bigger.
So it's not about winning the AI science fair. It's about what happens after the invention, just like with those earlier GPTs.
Exactly. The real question is, who can create the right conditions for AI to flourish, to transform their entire society? Who's building that GPT skill infrastructure needed to leverage this technology?
And by GPT skill infrastructure, you mean? Give me the breakdown. What does that actually look like?
Well, it's about creating an ecosystem. Think education systems that don't just teach about AI, right?
Right.
But teach people how to use it, to think with it. It's about training programs that help workers at all levels adapt to an AI-driven world. It's about, I think, a cultural shift.
Yeah.
Where we don't see AI as this, this job-stealing threat,
Right.
but as a tool that can amplify human potential.
So it's almost like those mechanics institutes we talked about earlier, but for the age of AI. We need to be churning out not just like the AI masterminds, but a whole workforce that's comfortable with these new tools that can collaborate with them.
Precisely. And this is where things get really interesting when we look at, what's happening globally right now. The U.S. has a head start for sure.
We do.
Silicon Valley, top universities, we've got the talent, the investment. We have a culture that embraces technology. But
Jing's research suggests it's not time to get complacent.
No, not at all. Because while the U.S. has been playing the long game with computing and software, China's been paying very close attention.
Really?
Oh, yeah. And they're making big moves, strategic moves to build their own GPT skill infrastructure. And the pace is pretty remarkable.
So they're not just trying to catch up, they're trying to win this next round.
Absolutely. That's certainly how I read it from Ding's work. They're graduating significantly more STEM students, pouring resources into AI research, even attracting top talent from around the world. They're definitely playing the long game, but they're playing it aggressively.
It's like they've been studying the playbook, learning from both the successes and the near misses of earlier GPT revolutions.
Yeah, and that's what makes this such a fascinating time to be alive. It's not just about which country has the best AI labs or the most patents. It's about who can create a society where AI flourishes, where it's woven into the fabric of, of their economy and their culture.
So where does that leave us? I mean, what's the takeaway for someone listening to this who's thinking, okay, cool history lesson, but what does this mean for me?
Well, it means we all have a part to play in this next chapter. Whether you're a student deciding what to study, an entrepreneur looking for the next big thing, or just someone trying to make sense of the world. Understanding GPTs is crucial.
Because it's not just about countries anymore, is it? It's about individuals too.
Exactly. In a world that's increasingly shaped by these powerful technologies like AI, the ability to adapt, to learn new skills, to connect dots across different fields, that's going to be the real superpower. It's about becoming, like we were saying earlier, a GPT person yourself.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, what's the one thought, the one question we want to leave our listeners with today?
I think it goes back to that idea of the GPT mindset. We're all bombarded with information, with new technologies every day. The real question is, are we just going to be passive consumers of this change? Or are we going to be, the ones shaping it? Are we going to be the active architects of it?
Are we going to be the blacksmiths, or are we going to be the ones building the machines that change the game? It's a powerful thought to end on. Thanks for joining us today. It's been great having you.
Thanks for having me. It was great being here.
It's